What up, Launch League Nation? We are back for episode 4 now of the Launch League. Once again, we are getting you prepped for your matchup this week. Week 3 of the NFL season is coming right around the corner. We are working the waiver wire tonight with the man, the myth, the legend, James from Fantasy Football Cockpit. We are going to look at his lineup in the Launch League, how he's been performing, and then we're going to give you guys some waiver wire tips to win your matchups this week. So without further ado, we will hop right into things. James, thank you very much for coming on tonight. And we're going to take a look at your team's performance this week. You took a 15-point W over Jeff Media. Talk me through it. I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes as a starting quarterback, Eckler and Elliott as the RB1 and RB2. Then you had Hardman, MVS as your starting receivers, Schultz, London, Nico Collins, Tyler Bass, and the Rams defense.
Yeah, no, my team, obviously the starting to the Chiefs wide receivers was tough playing on the Thursday night. Feeling pretty thin, the wide receiver position without Keenan Allen this week, so that kind of hurt. My only other options were Galladay and Garrett Wilson, and I was just kind of waiting to see with Garrett Wilson. He was a rookie I really liked, but I figured, I don't know, I wanted a high-scoring game between the Chiefs and Chargers, so I really thought there'd be lots of yards to go around. I was wrong. So neither guy did particularly well this week, unfortunately. Actually, Hardman had negative yards with one carry that he had, but yeah, all in all, the team kind of performed a little bit mediocre. Like Mahomes, sub 20 points kind of hurt. What else? Eckler did have a good week again, 18. Elliott got shut out. Schultz got hurt, so I'm kind of a little worried about that. But Drake London had a really big week. I was really excited about. Yeah, so like Drake London, Garrett Wilson are two young rookies I took a shot on in this league, and probably gonna be starting a lot more of now because I've been waiting to see them. To me, they were two of the 3 best wide receivers this year in rookie drafts. But yeah, being a 4-point passing league, Mahomes is a guy I hope can pick it up some more like he did week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to touch on all of that real soon here. It's nice to see rookies performing early so you can have that trust in them moving forward. Taking a look at your team and looking at some stuff that we might want to talk to other fantasy owners about this week. It's that issue in Dallas this year. I don't think we expected that to happen. And obviously, Zeke has struggled so far. I mean, the Buccaneers, I believe who they played in that week 1 game isn't a good matchup for any running game in the league, right? So we don't expect much. Are you expecting possibly an elevation in Ezekiel Elliott value moving forward, or are you thinking that we're going to sit around that 6 to 8 point range for the rest of the year?
I own Zeke in a lot of leagues. I had him in darn near all my dynasty leagues except 2 of them I traded him away in. I do expect him to get better. I really think he's been getting the bulk of the carries, and deservingly so. I think the first 2 games haven't gone the way they had hoped, especially losing Dak so early. It's kind of got them scrambling, and now with Schultz. The problem now with not having your quarterback and your tight end, obviously they could be seeing a lot more stacked boxes, but I mean, I think CD had an okay week this week, if I'm remembering that correctly. How did you do there? Well, seven catches for 75. So, I mean, he's being targeted, so hopefully defenses still respect him because he's getting it done. But, like Zeke, he saw 15 carries. So, I mean, they're not scared of giving him the ball. And this was a close one. They're going to need to rely on him if, they're squeaking out wins like they were against Cincinnati. Even if this is his last year, he's a guy I really like. And honestly, if he's getting the bulk of the carries, he's a guy that I want still. I'm having a hard time sitting him.
Yeah. I don't think you can sit him at this point, especially where you've drafted him. I mean, you've drafted him to produce him. I think that is right around the corner. You just got to get into his groove. It was a shock for this Dallas offense for Prescott to have that injury so early on in the season. So I think once they adjust to it, and have, some trust in Cooper Rush, which I think he's proven himself after this week for the Cowboys team. The points will just start flowing through that team. So we're going to touch on the Cowboys throughout this episode because they are a huge team right now in discussion. Schultz, another guy who you own, who a lot of fantasy owners are worried about. Are you concerned at all about that injury? And are you possibly targeting a guy like Logan Thomas this week to fill in a role if he's injured?
Yeah, no, like I'm a little concerned. It's obviously being a knee, and honestly, tight ends are big dudes. So I mean, someone as just athletic as him, it's pretty crucial because those knees are going through a lot. But no, Logan Thomas is a great ad. He was someone that I was really low on last year with the Commanders, just because Fitzpatrick was never a guy that liked the tight ends. Wentz comes in, Logan Thomas was a little hurt, so he was a guy I was really trying to get late in drafts. Him and Tunyon, just because they're guys that have some history and like some targets could open up for them this year. But no, I think Logan Thomas is a very good ad. Washington has looked pretty feisty those first couple weeks, and yeah, they're going to need everyone to contribute because defenses are going to probably start trying to lock down those receivers a bit more. So maybe that opens up a bit more for Thomas.
Yeah, and I think Logan Thomas is that guy. If you're struggling early on at the tight end position, we're talking guys like Schultz who are going down with injury, or just overall guys who aren't producing like Cole Kmet. You might be wanting to target somebody like Logan Thomas this week who could be that tight end 6, tight end 7, maybe even a tight end 5, which we've seen him finish as in the previous year by the end of the season. So I'm a huge fan of him this year. Moving it back to your lineup really quickly, Drake London, who you touched on, huge week, 24.5 points in our launch league. Are you expecting him to be a dog like that for the rest of the season with Marcus Mariota throwing him the ball?
I expected to go kind of up and down, kind of like the boom bust we saw of like Mike Williams in the past. And I think he's a really talented guy, not like a Mike Williams, but I mean, between him and Kyle Pitts, they're two really big, really athletic, strong pass catchers, and it's really hard for a defense to try to lock both of them down. So I really think it's going to go back and forth. There's going to be weeks Kyle Pitts eats, and there's going to be weeks he does. Obviously, like looking at what Miami did this week between Waddle and Hill, these two guys could do that as well, but it's all going to depend on Mariota's play, the matchups. But I like London. I think as far as a flex guy, he's great. He's going to have big weeks like this, but I wouldn't be surprised if he also saw 3 targets, 40 yards. So, 3 catches, 40 yards.
Yeah, and I think that's just expected as a rookie coming into the league. Hell, we saw Chase produce some games like that last year, right? He was the offensive rookie of the year. So I think that's expected, but to see Drake London producing is just fantastic for fantasy owners who have picked him up in their drafts. Now we're moving to the waiver wire now. A guy that you actually have in your lineup, I believe he's available in around 40% of fantasy leagues right now, is Garrett Wilson, another rookie who just went off this week. 8 receptions, 100-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. Do you like Garrett Wilson for the rest of the season, especially with Joe Flacco throwing him the ball right now?
I mean, the way Flacco's been playing, I love it. Like, they did have what looks like, well, I mean, Baltimore in week 1 wasn't an easy matchup for him, but he got 8 targets week 1 right away. And people got to respect Elijah Moore. We're seeing Corey Davis, like, he had 2 big catches this week. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in that offense, especially with Michael Carter being able to catch. Breece Hall, he's going to get better. There's just so much happening in this offense. I think it's hard for defenses to be accountable for them all. But Garrett Wilson was a top 3 rookie prospect for me this year. So I have quite a few teams with him on it. And honestly, after week 1, seeing the 8 targets, I was feeling good that he was going to get better. And similar thing, I think him and Elijah Moore could trade big weeks. But seeing like, geez, what is that? 22 targets in his first 2 games. That looks really good. So I feel really good starting him as we go forward, especially with Flacco, since he's giving him those looks.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the Jets is, as not very good of a team that they are, the receiving talent on that team, especially fantasy-wise, is superb. I mean, Elijah Moore, who we saw produce last year, now Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, as you mentioned, is flying up waiver wires. He is if not the number one guy, one of the number one guys people are targeting this week. He's had back-to-back 12-plus point games in fantasy. So credit to that Jets team and Joe Flacco this year for producing fantasy options like that. Speaking of receivers who are at the top of the waiver wire this week, circling back around, like I promised, to the Dallas Cowboys is Noah Brown. So this guy, there's a lot of talk about Jalen Tolbert heading into drafts this year. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, crowded offense. That Dalton Schultz, Tony Pollard. Noah Brown this week really outperformed standards, I think. I mean, 20 points week 2 against Cincinnati, and he also had 12 points in week 1 against Tampa Bay. Do you think that that's a value that you as a fantasy owner want to invest in, or is this something that might fade away as we see guys come back to the offense, back from injury like Schultz, like Gallup?
Yeah. Honestly, I was expecting at least one wide receiver outside of Gallup and Lamb to kind of emerge this year. My bet was on Tolbert just because he was an exciting young rookie. He had some look in preseason, but Noah Brown's looked really good. Like this week, he caught all 5 of his targets, nearly got a century mark and a touchdown. But the week previous, he had 9 targets. And so it's something that looks really good. So to see him catch more of them, maybe he's getting maybe a little bit prioritized more on the routes like he did in week 2. And with CeeDee Lamb on the opposite side and Zeke in the box, it's like we said, like how do you account for all these guys? And so Jalen Tolbert, I'm a little bit lower on him now, just seeing how Noah Brown's looked. And he has looked good. He is a guy I think you have to at least stash him because the Dallas team, they're a team that want to win this year and they want to be competitive, so they're going to be feisty.
Right, and that's what you got to think about looking at the waivers is he worth a stash? At the end of the day, it's not is he going to produce 20 points a game for me. Is he worth a stash? Is he worth, I have a bye week and I need a guy to fill in? And I think Noah Brown, especially with the injuries that have already flooded that Cowboys offense, is a guy that you might want to just hold on to, especially if it's your 6th, 7th bench spot, right? I think it's worth spending a shot at somebody like that with high upside. That's about it for waivers this week. But James, I got to ask you, aside from fantasy, I know you're a Texans fan, but we're not going to talk about the Texans right now because I know it's been a little bit of an unfortunate start for you guys. I want to talk about the Giants, all right? If you told me at the beginning of the season that the Raiders would be 0-2 and the Giants would be 2-0, I probably would have, sent you to get some help, right? I wouldn't have expected this to happen at all. Are you think that the Giants have something in the works this year, or is this some sort of fluky? They played a few decent games against some mediocre teams, and they're going to fall right off after that?
I think there's something there. I don't know if it's much, but kind of like the Jets, I think they're just going to stick around to spoil a lot of people's playoff run. They're going to be kind of like what the Browns were a few years ago with that tie against the Steelers and everything coming down to that last game. But their defenses looked really good. They have some pieces. They're healthy. Barkley looked absolutely fantastic in that first week. Yeah. Had a little bit of a tougher time this week, but I think there's something about them. I don't think they're as bad as everyone expected them to be. I think there's definitely a few teams that have really surprised, like the Jets, the Giants, and then there's other teams that have really kind of surprised us the opposite way, like the Bengals right now and the Raiders. Like, goodness, what has happened to the poor Bengals?
No. I don't even want to get into it. I'm not a Bengals fan, but it's just been straight up disappointing. Predictions for this week, though: Giants, Cowboys, Monday Night Football. The lights are on. Cooper Rush, Daniel Jones, fantastic quarterback battle. Who do you think is taking this Monday Night Football game home?
It's an interesting one. Honestly, I think it could be the Giants. It's so weird that the Cowboys have always been a team I've had troubles betting for and against. Barkley's been looking pretty good. They're giving him the work. And I have no idea what to think of the wide receiver group with the Giants. They just seem to be rolling. And if you had to
Anyone,
name a wide receiver under 5'10" and 200 pounds, I'd be catching the ball. Richie James was like the fourth name on that list, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Dallas defense has looked decent as well. There's a lot of guys they had to shut down last week with the Bengals. So I mean, it's going to be a battle. I don't know if it's going to be a high scoring game, but it's probably the toughest one I have. I think the Giants could upset. I think they could.
You know what? There's been too many upsets this year for me not to bet for the Giants this week. So you'll see it on the Monday Night Football predictions this week. But James, I appreciate you coming on tonight and giving your input on the weekly waivers for Week 3.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Everybody, if you guys would please drop a like, follow, comment. Credit to the Fantasy Football Network, of course. Melon for giving us the platform. And I'll catch you guys on Saturday for your weekly starts and sits to get your matchups right and win your matchups this week. Peace out, guys.